They laughed him out of the room. A bouncing bomb? The generals at the Air Ministry called Barnes Wallis's idea absurd, a child's toy. They demanded real weapons. They stopped laughing when that single toy unleashed 300 million tons of water and smashed the industrial heart of the Third Reich, November 19th, 1942. The Air Ministry, Adastral House, London. The air in the committee room is thick with stale cigar smoke and the scent of floor wax. It's a room of polished mahogany, leather-bound books, and men whose faces are maps of stress and skepticism. At the head of the table, an array of air commodores and technical experts shift impatiently. And at the far end, looking less like a revolutionary thinker and more like a harried schoolmaster, stands Barnes Neville Wallis. He clears his throat, the sound swallowed by the oppressive silence. In his hands are diagrams, mathematical projections, and photographs. On the table before the committee sits a small, wooden model of a dam, and next to it, a single, ordinary glass marble. "Gentlemen," Wallis begins, his voice earnest, "we have been trying to break the Ruhr dams for 2 years. All our conventional bombing efforts have failed. The Möhne, the Edersee, the Sorp, they are not just walls, they are fortresses of gravity." He's right, and everyone in this room knows it. The Ruhr Valley is the black, pumping heart of the Nazi war machine. It is where 60% of Germany's coal is mined, where its steel is forged, where its tanks and U-boats are born. And the water, the sheer hydraulic power that feeds this industrial beast, comes from 3 massive reservoirs. Cut them, and you bleed the Reich dry. But they are invincible. The Möhne Dam is over 110 feet thick at its base. A conventional 1,000-pound bomb, even a blockbuster, would do little more than chip the paint. The Germans know this. They've also hung massive, heavy-duty torpedo nets across the front of the dams, stretching deep into the water, making any underwater attack impossible. "We are attacking the problem from the wrong angle," Wallis insists, leaning forward. His eyes are bright, energized by an idea that has completely consumed him. "We are trying to fly over and drop down. We must instead fly low and attack the face." A few of the committee members glance at each other. Low-level flying near the most heavily defended industrial region on Earth? It's suicide. Wallis presses on, ignoring the signals. A torpedo is useless. The nets. A conventional mine is too heavy. The aircraft to carry it doesn't exist. But what if the weapon itself could defeat the nets? He picks up the glass marble. "Water," he says, "is not compressible. The destructive power of an explosion is infinitely magnified when it is tamped, when it is contained. If we could detonate a massive charge directly against the dam wall, under the water, the resulting shockwave would act like a tectonic event. It would not just puncture the dam, it would shatter it. It would unzip it." A skeptical Air Commodore leans back, folding his arms. "That is self-evident, Mr. Wallis, and it is also, as you've said, impossible. The nets." Wallis beams, a slightly manic energy about him. "Exactly. Unless the bomb never touches the nets." He walks to the end of the table. He takes the marble, and with a flick of his wrist, he sends it skipping across the polished mahogany surface. Tick, 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 it bounces, gliding over the ink blotters and pencils, finally clattering against the wooden model of the dam. A heavy, profound silence fills the room. The men staring at him are not stupid. They are commanders. They are engineers. They understand physics. And what they have just seen is a children's party trick being presented as a war-winning strategy. A bouncing bomb? One of them finally says, the words laced with disbelief. "Precisely," Wallis exclaims, launching into a flurry of calculations. "A cylindrical mine. We drop it from a precise, very low altitude, 60 feet. At a precise speed 220 miles per hour. We spin it backwards, at 500 revolutions per minute. This backspin will create a gyroscopic effect and a Magnus lift, keeping it on the surface. It will not sink. It will skip, like a stone, over the torpedo nets. It will strike the dam wall, and the residual backspin will make it climb down the wall, using the water to hold it fast against the concrete. A hydrostatic fuse will detonate it at a depth of 30 feet. The tamped explosion. He's cut off, not by an objection, but by a sound. It starts as a snort from a man in the back, a cough that sounds suspiciously like a chuckle, then a low murmur. And then open, dismissive laughter. It's not cruel. It is the exhausted, patronizing laughter of practical men who have real problems, who have to count aircraft and fuel, and coffins being told their salvation lies in a magic skipping stone. "My dear Wallis," one senior official says, wiping a tear of mirth from his eye, "you are truly a credit to the imagination. But we are fighting a war here, not a grammar school science fair. You are asking us to build a fleet of new aircraft, risk our best crews, to fly at 60 feet in the dark, to skip marbles across a lake. It's the most absurd damned thing I've ever heard. The meeting is over. The bouncing bomb is rejected. It is filed away under eccentric and unfeasible." Barnes Wallis walks out of the Air Ministry, his diagrams clutched to his chest, into the cold London twilight. The laughter of the generals and the air commodores echoes in his ears. But Wallis is not just an inventor. He is an obsessive, and he knows his calculations are not wrong. The laughter hasn't defeated him. It has only fueled him. If the Air Ministry won't listen, he will go over their heads. He will go straight to the top. The Reich's industry must be broken, and he is the only man who knows how to do it. March 21st, 1943, RAF Scampton, Lincolnshire. A biting cold wind rolls across the flat, featureless expanse of the airfield. This is not a glamour post. It is a functional, muddy, and isolated outpost of Bomber Command. And it has just become the most secret place in all of England. The man walking towards the officers' mess is not happy. Wing Commander Guy Gibson is 24 years old, but he looks 34. His eyes, dark and heavy-lidded, have seen more than any man should. He has flown 170 operations fighters, night fighters, and bombers. He is, by all accounts, ops expired. He has done his duty, survived 3 tours when most men don't survive one, and earned a quiet desk job. He was, in fact, on his way to a new post, looking forward to a bit of peace, when he was snatched, diverted, and ordered to report to Air Vice Marshal Ralph Cochrane at 5 Group. The meeting had been short and baffling. "You're to form a new squadron, Gibson," Cochrane had said, his voice clipped, "for a special operation, a one-off." Gibson, a man who prized rules and discipline, was immediately suspicious. "What operation, sir?" "Can't tell you. Top secret." "What target?" "Can't tell you." "How many crews?" 21, the best in the command. They're already being transferred. Australians, Canadians, British. They're all yours. And that was it. Gibson arrived at Scampton to find a brand new, unnumbered squadron, a collection of elite flight crews who were as confused and annoyed as he was, and a base that was being locked down by armed guards. Their mail was to be censored, their phone calls monitored, all leave was cancelled, indefinitely. This was how Operation Chastise began, not with a bang, but with a veil of suffocating secrecy. Barnes Wallis, after the laughter of the Air Ministry, had not given up. He had used a connection to get a memo directly to Air Chief Marshal Charles Portal. He had created a film demonstration showing a scale model dam collapsing in a test tank. The film had landed on the desk of the one man who had the power, the audacity, and the sheer ruthlessness to see it through. Air Marshal Arthur Bomber Harris. Harris, the commander of Bomber Command, despised panacea weapons. He believed in one thing, the relentless, overwhelming destruction of German cities by night. He called his bombers the heavy hand of retribution. He found precision targets to be a waste of time, but he hated the Ruhr. He had thrown his bombers at it night after night, and it remained the most heavily defended airspace on the planet. The flak was so thick, crews said you could walk on it. Wallis's plan was different. It wasn't about terror, it was about surgery. It was an engineer's solution to a strategic stalemate, and it was, to Harris's mind, completely insane. But the payoff, if it worked, a flooded Ruhr Valley, Steel production crippled, power stations drowned. The industrial heart of the Reich stopped. Harris made a calculation. He looked at the potential cost. He looked at the potential reward. And on February 26, 1943, he gave his blessing. The impossible mission was on. Back at Scampton, Gibson is trying to forge a weapon from 147 confused, high-strung airmen. He is a difficult CO. He is aloof, demanding, and a ferocious stickler for discipline. He drives his men relentlessly, and he drives himself harder. He is the first to fly the new, bizarre aircraft that are being delivered. They are Avro Lancasters, but they are wrong. The bomb bay doors have been completely removed, leaving a long, open trough in the belly of the plane. The mid-upper gun turret is gone. Even the armor plating around the cockpit has been stripped. The planes are being made lighter, faster. But for what? The weapon they are to carry is so secret, even Gibson isn't allowed to see it. It is known only by its code name, Upkeep. The training is brutal and baffling. Gibson gathers his pilots. We are to practice low-level flying, he commands, by day and by night. How low, sir? Asks Flight Lieutenant David Maltby. The order is 150 feet, Gibson says. The pilots exchange uneasy glances. 150 feet, in a 35-ton heavy bomber, is low. To fly at that height, at night, over unknown terrain, is courting suicide. A week later, the order changes. New altitude, Gibson announces, his face grim, 100 feet. The grumbling in the mess hall grows. This is madness. Then, the real work begins. The crews are ordered to fly over specific bodies of water, the Uppingham Reservoir, the Abberton Reservoir. They are to fly, in the dark, at 220 miles per hour, at 60 feet, not 61 feet, not 59 feet, 60 feet. It is an altitude so low it is incomprehensible. At that height, the Lancaster's propellers are kicking up spray. The turbulence from the ground effect makes the bomber shudder and wallow. A moment's inattention, a slight downdraft, and the plane will cartwheel into the water. They try to measure it. The standard barometric altimeters are useless, laughably inaccurate at that level. They are guesstimating. Crews are crashing. A plane hits the sea on a training run. Another flies straight into a hillside. The men are on edge, their nerves screaming. They are exhausted, terrified, and they still don't know what they are training for. They call themselves the Suicide Squadron. Gibson needs a solution. He needs a way to guarantee his planes are at 60 feet. One of his pilots, a man named Hopgood, suggests a ridiculous, brilliant idea. He tells Gibson, "You get 2 spotlights. You mount one in the nose, one in the tail. You angle them precisely so their beams converge on the water's surface, only when the plane is at exactly 60 feet. When the 2 circles of light become one perfect figure 8, you're on target. It is a low-tech, genius solution to a high-tech, impossible problem. The dam busters have just invented their own bomb sight. Now, all they have to do is learn to fly, in the dark, through Flak, while one man stares out a blister window, yelling, 'Up, down, steady, steady,' as 2 spots of light dance on the black water below. And Barnes Wallis, he is at a secret facility in Reculver, watching his full-size Upkeep mines, spinning and bouncing, tear themselves apart in test drops. The mission is scheduled for May. He has less than 2 months to make his marble work. May 13th, 1943, RAF Scampton. The guards at the gates of Hangar 2 are doubled. Inside, under the harsh glare of industrial lights, the crews of the newly christened 617 Squadron are gathered. They are whispering, their voices a low, nervous rumble. They've been pulled from their mess, from their bunks, and told to assemble. Wing Commander Gibson stands at the front, his face pale and set. Beside him are Barnes Wallis, looking like a man who hasn't slept in a year, and Air Vice Marshal Cochrane. The centerpiece of the hangar, however, is not a man. It is a Lancaster, G for George, and nestled beneath its open belly is the reason for their entire existence. It is codenamed Upkeep, but the crews just stare. It is a monster. It is a 9,000-pound oil drum, 5 feet long, 60 inches in diameter. It's not a bomb, it's a mine. It looks raw, industrial, almost agricultural, like some piece of oversized farm machinery. And it is mounted on a complex V-shaped cradle, connected by a belt and motor to a hydraulic drive. This is the spinning mechanism. This, Gibson says, his voice cutting through the murmurs, is what you will be carrying. A pilot, Flight Lieutenant Le Munro, a quiet New Zealander, runs a hand over the cold, black steel. He can't make sense of it. All those months of training, all those crashes, all that risk. For this? What in God's name is it, sir? He asks. Barnes Wallis steps forward. He looks at the faces of these young men boys, really, in their early 20s. He knows, with the cold certainty of mathematics, that many of them will not survive the night he has planned for them. The weight of this moment is crushing. It is a key, Wallis says, his voice quiet, almost reverent. A key to unlock the heart of the Reich. They move from the hangar to the briefing room. The doors are locked. The windows are blacked out. The men file in, taking their seats. The air is so thick with cigarette smoke and anticipation, it's hard to breathe. Gibson stands at the front. He nods to a military policeman, who pulls a heavy cloth sheet off a massive mapboard. A collective gasp, a sharp intake of breath. It is not a city. It is not a factory. It is not a battleship. It is a chain of massive blue lakes. Gentlemen, Gibson begins, his voice now devoid of all emotion. Your target is the Ruhr Valley, specifically, the dams. He picks up a wooden pointer. It taps the map with a sharp click. This is the Möhne. This is the Edersee. And this is the Sorp. For 2 years, Bomber Command has tried to break them. They have failed. Tonight, we will not. The room erupts, not in cheers, but in a chaotic buzz of excited, terrified questions. The Ruhr? That is the most heavily defended airspace in the world, the Valley of Flak. And then, it all clicks into place. The low-level flying, to get under the radar, the night training, to use the darkness as a shield, the spotlights, to guarantee the precise drop height. The reservoirs they practiced on, they were the same size and shape as the German lakes, and the bouncing bomb. Wallis steps up again, this time with a diagram. He explains the torpedo nets. He explains his theory of the tamped explosion. He explains the backspin. A navigator in the back raises his hand. Sir, you said 60 feet, at 220 miles per hour. But how do we know when to release the mine? How do we know the exact distance from the dam wall? Gibson nods. He knew this was coming. We have, he says, another solution for that. He holds up a simple, forked piece of wood, almost like a child's slingshot. This will be mounted in the window. You will look through the sight at the 2 towers on either end of the dam. When the towers align, with the nails on this sight, you will be at the precise range. Your bomb aimer will release the mine. It will take approximately 17 seconds for you to fly in, from the moment you clear the hills to the moment you drop. 17 seconds. 17 seconds of flying at 60 feet, in a 35-ton bomber, at 220 miles per hour, with no ability to evade, illuminated by their own spotlights, flying straight into a wall of concrete that is bristling with 20 millimeters, flak cannons, and machine gun nests. The men in the room are the best pilots in the world, and they are all, simultaneously, doing the math. They are calculating their chances of survival. The number is not high. The plan is laid out. It will be a full moon night. They will fly in 3 waves. Gibson himself will lead the first wave of 9 aircraft, designated Formation 1, to strike the Möhne. If the Möhne is breached, they are to continue to the Edersee. A second wave, Formation 2, will attack the Sorp. The Sorp is an earthen dam, not concrete. Wallis's bouncing mine won't work there. So, these Lancasters flown by men like Flight Lieutenant Joe McCarthy and America have a different, equally insane task. They must fly along the dam, not at it, and drop their mine without spinning it from 100 feet, hoping to create a simple crater. A third wave, Formation 3, will be a mobile reserve, to be directed by radio to whichever targets are not yet broken. Gibson looks at the faces of his men, his squadron, his suicide crew. He sees fear, he sees exhaustion, but he also sees a hard, cold glint of determination. They are 617 Squadron. They do the impossible. This is not a terror raid, Gibson says, his voice low and dangerous. This is a strike. It is the most important bombing mission of the war. If you succeed, you will cut the water from 500,000 German troops. You will halt steel production. You will, quite literally, stop the Nazi war machine. He straightens up. Crews will be briefed on their routes. Full flight check at 20 hours. We go tonight. The men file out, not in a rabble, but in a silent, stunned procession. They go to write their letters home. They go to check their planes. They go to face the fact that, in less than 8 hours, they will be flying into the jaws of hell, armed with a bouncing stone. May 16th, 1943, 21:39. Hours, RAF Scampton. The sound is not like other bombing raids. It is not the staggered, thunderous roar of a main force gaggle. It is the synchronized, high-strung howl of 19 Avro Lancaster engines, the most powerful aero engines in the world, straining against their brakes. On the runway, inside the cockpit of G for George, Wing Commander Guy Gibson, call sign AJG, grips the yoke. His bomber is a monster, weighing over 34 tons. It is overloaded with fuel for the low-level flight, and beneath him, the 9,000-pound upkeep mine is already spinning. The hydraulic motor had been engaged. The entire airframe of the Lancaster is thrumming with a deep, low-frequency, gut-churning vibration. It is the vibration of a 9,000-pound spinning top, desperate to find stability. Gibson's flight engineer, John Pulford, watches the dials, his face slick with sweat. "Clear to roll, sir." Gibson's voice crackles over the intercom. He pushes the 4 throttles forward. The Lancaster screams, and it waddles heavy, reluctant, and ungainly down the runway. It is using every last inch of tarmac. Gibson hauls back on the yoke, and the bomber drags itself into the air, its undercarriage groaning as it retracts, clearing the trees at the end of the field by a terrifyingly small margin. One by one, the others follow. M for Mother, P for Popsy, H for Harry. They are airborne, but they do not climb. That is the first, shocking truth of the mission. They do not climb to a safe cruising altitude. Gibson forms them up, and they immediately drop. They cross the coast of England at just 100 feet, so low their own coastal radar units can't track them. They are in 3 waves. Gibson leads the first, 9 planes strong, bound for the Myrna. The second wave of 5, led by Joe McCarthy in T for Tom, is right behind them, headed for the Sorp. The third wave of 5, the reserve, is last. Over the black, moonlit expanse of the North Sea, the mission begins its war of attrition. The air is cold and heavy. The pilots are fighting to stay awake, their eyes fixed on the 2 converging spots of light on the churning water below, 60 feet, for 2 hours. Then, landfall. They cross the Dutch coast. This is not high-altitude warfare. This is street fighting, done with a 70-foot-long bomber. They fly under the radar. They fly under the main Flak defences. They are flying by map and stopwatch, roaring over fields, their prop wash tearing leaves from the tops of trees. They follow canals and railway lines, their navigators screaming corrections. "Pylon! Pylon! Pull up!" Flight Lieutenant Bill Astell, piloting B for Baker, is not fast enough. In the dark, at 240 miles per hour, his Lancaster clips a high-tension power line. The aircraft, fully loaded with fuel and a 9,000-pound mine, cartwheels into the ground in a catastrophic, brilliant white explosion. 1 down. Flight Lieutenant Le Munro, piloting W for Willie, is luckier. A flak emplacement, firing blind into the night, riddles his aircraft. His intercom is shot out, his radio is destroyed. He is flying a crippled bomber, unable to talk to his crew or his commander. He makes the agonizing decision. He turns for home, his mind still in his belly. The formation is bleeding. But Gibson presses on. They are now deep in the dragon's lair. They fly over the city of Duisburg. The sky ahead, which had been black, erupts. It becomes a wall of light. Hundreds of searchlights, blue-white and probing, stab the air. Flak batteries, from light 20mm to heavy 88mm, open up. The tracers come up, not as dots, but as lazy, floating, terrifying ropes of green and red. They seem to chemi right for the cockpit, only to whip past at supersonic speed. Gibson shoves the yoke, his Lancaster diving and banking, the G-forces pulling at his face. Corkscrew, corkscrew, he roars. But they cannot. To corkscrew is to climb. To climb is to be seen. To be seen is to die. They have to stay low, 60 feet, and fly through it. P for Popsy, piloted by Flight Lieutenant Harold Mick Martin, flies so low through one flak barrage that a 20mm shell punches up through his wing, grazes his engine, and explodes above him without detonating. Gibson, ahead, sees the hills of the Ruhr Valley rising. His navigator, Terry Tarum, his face buried in the glow of his map light, looks up. 5 minutes to target, Skip. We are on the run. Gibson's hands are white on the controls. His mouth is dry. The laughter of the generals in London seems a million miles away. Barnes Wallis's theory is about to have its trial by fire. Gibson sees it. A vast, shimmering expanse of silver water, held back by a colossal, curving wall of black stone. It is just as the models predicted, the Möhne Dam, and it is defended. The towers on the dam wall and the hillsides around it are spitting fire. It is a hornet's nest. Okay, boys. Gibson's voice comes over the radio, miraculously calm. This is it. Going in. May 17th, 1943, 028 hours. The Möhne Reservoir. Guy Gibson is no longer a wing commander. He is a matador, and he is waving a red flag at a very angry bull. Spafford, talk me in. Pulford, spotlights on. Terry, keep counting. Gibson's voice on the intercom is a steel rod. His Lancaster, G for George, turns, thundering down the length of the vast, moonlit lake. He is aiming for the center of that 800-foot-long, 150-foot-high wall of concrete. The spotlights in his nose and belly snap on, stabbing 2 bright yellow circles onto the black water, and in that instant, every German gunner on the dam knows exactly where he is. The night explodes. Tracers, like horizontal red rain, fly from both ends of the dam, converging on the single, impossibly low bomber. The sound in the cockpit is a deafening CRACKCRACKCRACKWHUMP as shells explode around them. Down, Skip. Down, a touch, yells Flight Engineer John Pulford, his eyes glued to the dancing circles of light. Gibson shoves the yoke forward, his knuckles white. The Lancaster groans, its propellers just 20 feet from the water. Steady, steady, that's it. 60 feet. In the nose, the bomb aimer, Spafford, is not looking at the flak. He is staring through his primitive V-shaped wooden sight, trying to make 2 tiny nails align with the 2 stone towers on the dam. Left, steady, steady, hold her, Skip, hold her. The flak is inside the cockpit. It's a hurricane of noise and light. Gibson is flying by sheer primal instinct, fighting the turbulence, his feet jamming the rudder to keep the plane from slewing. Now, yells Spafford. Bomb gone. He slams the release. The 9,000-pound mine drops away. Instantly, the Lancaster, 9,000 pounds lighter, shoots into the air. Gibson fights it, jamming the yoke down to keep from becoming an easy target. He banks the plane hard, a violent wing overturn, climbing so they can see the result. The mine, spinning backwards, hits the water. 1, 2, 3. It skips. A perfect, bouncing splash, just as Barnes Wallis had promised. It hits the dam wall with a dull clang. And it sinks. The crew holds its breath. A pause. 3 seconds. 5. Then, a colossal, silent column of white water, a mile high, erupts from the base of the dam. It is not an explosion of fire. It is a hydraulic shove, a tectonic event. The water rises, then collapses. Gibson circles, his heart in his throat. The flak has stopped, the gunners stunned. The searchlights probe the chaos of spray. The water subsides. The dam is still there. A groan of despair from the rear gunner. No effect, Skip. No effect. But Gibson, his eyes sharp, sees it. The water is weeping from the base. It is hurt. Right, Gibson says into his radio. Hoppy, you're next. Go in. Flight Lieutenant Hoppy Hopgood, in M for Mother, acknowledges. Going in, AJG. But Gibson knows what's coming. The gunners are not stunned anymore. They are angry. They are waiting. I'm going with you, Hoppy, Gibson says. I'll draw their fire. It is a decision that is either suicidally brave or tactically insane. Gibson turns G for George and flies at the dam's flak towers, his own gunners blazing, as Hopgood begins his run. The Germans are baffled. 2 targets. Hopgood's spotlights snap on. The flak converges, but this time it's split. Half for Gibson, half for Hopgood. It's not enough. A 20mm shell finds M for Mother. It rips into the port wing, into the fuel tank. The wing erupts in a sheet of fire. Hopgood is flying a 35-ton torch. You're hit, Hoppy. Pull up, Gibson screams. But Hopgood doesn't. Or he can't. His voice comes over the radio, impossibly calm. Going in, bomb gone. He gets the mine away. But the plane is dying. It lurches, one wing collapsing. It cartwheels and hits the power station just behind the dam. The Lancaster and its crew of 7 vanish in a blinding flash, a fireball that momentarily eclipses the moon. Hopgood's mine, dropped from a burning plane, bounces over the dam and destroys the power station he just crashed into. A terrible, cold fury fills Gibson. Mick, you're next. He roars. I'm coming with you. Flight Lieutenant Mick Martin, in P for Popsy, drops to 60 feet. Again, Gibson flies escort, a defiant, angry ghost, his plane now pockmarked with holes, drawing fire. Martin's run is perfect. The mine skips. It hits. It sinks. Whump. Another colossal geyser of water. The dam shudders. It is bleeding now, water pouring from a dozen new cracks. But it holds. David! Gibson calls, his voice raw. J for Johnny. You're next. Hit the same spot. Hit it, David. Flight Lieutenant David Maltby begins his run. For the 4th time, Gibson flies into the wall of flak. His gunners are firing until their barrels are white hot. The air smells of cordite and fear. Maltby is perfect. The spotlights, the sight, the speed. Bomb gone. The mine skips. It hits the same wounded spot on the wall. It sinks. And this time, it is different. There is no single column of water. There is a deep, groaning crack. The entire 800-foot-long dam seems to shudder on its foundations. A tremor runs through the concrete. The top of the wall just crumbles. Then, as the men in the circling bombers watch in stunned biblical awe, the center of the Myrna Dam simply vanishes. It doesn't explode. It is pushed aside. For a second, there is silence. And then, 134 million tons of water, the pent-up fury of an entire lake, bursts through the 300-foot-wide gap, a 30-foot-high tidal wave, a solid wall of black water and debris, moves with a deafening, grinding roar into the valley below. It is not a flood. It is an avalanche of water, moving at 20 miles per hour, destroying everything in its path. Gibson, circling in the chaos, keys his radio. His voice is shaking, adrenaline and grief and triumph all colliding. He sends the code word. The name of his black Labrador, who had been run over just before the raid. N-I-G-G-E-R. He spells out, the code for the Mona. The dam is breached. The dam is breached. He looks down at the unstoppable torrent, obliterating the moonlit valley. It is the most terrible and magnificent thing he has ever seen. He takes a breath. His job here is done. But the night is not over. All remaining aircraft, he says, his voice pure ice once more. Set course for the Edersee. May 17th, 1943, 1:15 hours. The Eder Valley. The flight from the Myrna is a 15-minute, white-knuckle nightmare. Gibson, Maltby, and the 3 remaining bombers, L for Leather, piloted by David Shannon, Z for Zebra, Henry Maudslay, and N for Nan, Leigh Snye, are not flying to the Edersee. They are flying through the narrow, winding valleys of the Ada. They are at treetop level, their wingtips seemingly scraping the dark pines on the hillsides as they bank and weave in the moonlight. There is no flak here. There are no searchlights. There is no need. The terrain is the defence. Gibson, his duty as a pathfinder done, circles high above, climbing to 1,000 feet to act as air controller, his own bomb bay empty. David. His voice crackles. Shannon, you're first. Go in. Flight Lieutenant David Shannon, a 20-year-old pilot, pushes the yoke of L for Leather forward and dives into the punch bowl. What he sees makes his blood run cold. The Edersee Dam is a monster, even larger than the Myrna, and it is tucked between 2 towering, sheer-faced hills. There is no long, straight lake to line up on. To attack, Shannon has to dive his 35-ton Lancaster down the side of one hill, level out instantly at 60 feet over the water, stabilize his speed at 220 miles per hour, get the mine away, and then pray he has enough power to climb out over the opposite hill without stalling. Worse, the water is not clear. A thick, soupy mist clings to the surface, obscuring the altitude. Going in, Shannon reports, his voice tight. He dives. The roar of his engines echoes off the rock walls. His spotlights hit the mist and diffuse into a useless, blinding glare. Can't see, can't see, his bomb aimer cries. Pull up, pull up. Shannon aborts. He hauls the Lancaster back up, circling in the tight valley. No good, Skip. Can't judge the height. Going again. He tries, and he fails. He tries 6 times, 6 terrifying dives into the Black Valley. 6 times he aborts, the mist and the sheer, ungodly difficulty of the maneuver defeating him. He is sweating, his hands aching. Gibson, circling above, watches the fuel gauges. They are running out of time. Stand by, David. Let Henry try. Zebra. Maudslay. Are you in? Squadron leader Henry Maudslay, a well-liked, gentle officer, acknowledges. Roger. AJG. Going in. Z for Zebra dives. Maudslay is determined. He plunges through the mist. His bomb aimer, Robert Urquhart, is staring, his eyes burning, at the dam wall. But something is wrong. They are too low. Or too late. Bomb gone. Maudslay's voice is a shout. Gibson, from above, sees the mine release. It skips, but it hits the parapet. The top of the dam wall. For one brilliant, horrifying millisecond, the entire valley is illuminated as if by daylight. The 9,000-pound mine detonates on contact at 60 feet in the open air. The explosion is catastrophic. Z for Zebra, caught in the blast, is not just shot down, it is vaporized. The shockwave hits Gibson's plane 1,000 feet up, throwing it onto its side. When Gibson fights the controls and looks back, there is nothing. No plane, no crew. Just a climbing, black funeral pyre of smoke. The radio is silent. 2 dams to break. 2 crews, Hopgood and Maudslay, are gone. Into this terrible silence, a quiet Australian voice cuts in. Pilot Officer Les Knight, in N for Nan. Going in, he says. It is now all or nothing. Shannon has failed to drop. Maudslay is dead. Knight has the last mine at the Edersee. He has learned from the others. He takes a wide, looping path, coming in over the castle that overlooks the lake, giving himself every possible second. He dives, his engines at full power, a controlled crash into the valley. He hits the mist. He doesn't pull up. He trusts his instruments. He trusts the converging spotlights. Steady, steady, 60 feet, his engineer calls. The dam wall is rushing at them. Hold it, hold it. Bomb gone. The mine drops. It is perfect. Knight performs an almost vertical climbing turn, his engines screaming, and claws his way over the hilltop, clearing the trees by inches. The mine skips. It hits the wall. It sinks. There is a pause. The explosion, when it comes, is a deep, muffled thump. From above, Gibson sees the dam shudder. A massive crack, like a black lightning bolt, appears from top to bottom. And then, with a groan that the crews can feel through the soles of their boots, the Edersee dam breaks. It is a different kind of breach, not a tidal wave, but a cataract. Nearly 200 million tons of water more than the Myrna begins to pour, a colossal, grinding, unstoppable waterfall of destruction into the valleys below. Gibson keys his radio. Target breached, target breached. Well done, Nan, well done all. Now, let's get the hell home. As Gibson's battered formation turns for the long, dangerous flight back, another drama is playing out in the darkness miles away. The second wave, led by the American, Joe McCarthy, has finally found the unbreachable, unbounceable Sorp Dam. May 17th, 1943, 1:46 hours. The Sorp Valley. Flight Lieutenant Joe McCarthy, an American flying with the Royal Canadian Air Force, is furious. He is also lost, and he is flying the wrong plane. His night has been a disaster. Back at Scampton, his original Lancaster, T for Tom, had a hydraulic failure just minutes before takeoff. He and his entire crew had to sprint, in full flight gear, across the tarmac to the reserve bomber, Q for Queenie. They took off 30 minutes late, alone, and have been playing a desperate game of catch-up ever since, navigating the low-level routes without a formation. Now, he finds the Sorp, and it's nothing like the briefings. The Myrna and Edersee were concrete walls. The Sorp is a mountain. It is a colossal, 700-metre-long, 190-foot-high dam made of earth and rock. Barnes Wallis's bouncing, mine is useless here. The orders for this dam are different. They are, arguably, insane. McCarthy must not bounce the mine. He must not fly at the dam. He must fly along the length of the dam wall, at 60 feet, in the dark, in a valley choked with mist, and drop the 9,000-pound mine, unspun, precisely on the centre of the earthen crest. It is not a bombing run. It is threading a needle with a 35-ton bomber, in a fog, at 200 miles per hour. Right. McCarthy's voice booms over the intercom. This is it. Let's find the bloody thing. He dives, Q for Queenie, into the valley. The fog is a solid, white blanket. His spotlights are useless, glaring back at him. Can't see a damn thing. His bomb aimer, George Johnson, calls out, "Pull up, Skip, pull up." McCarthy curses, his arms straining as he hauls the Lancaster up the side of the valley, circles, and comes back for another try. This is not the thunderous battle of the Myrna. This is a cold, clinical, and terrifying duel between one pilot and the terrain. There is no flak. The Germans never dreamed an attack here was possible. The only enemy is the fog and the sheer, unforgiving physics of the run. He tries, and he fails. He tries again, too high, again, too fast, again. The mist is too thick. 9 times, McCarthy attempts the run. 9 times, he aborts. His crew is silent, their knuckles white, their trust absolute. "One more time, George," McCarthy says, his voice a low growl. "We do it this time." He dives, his engines roaring, the prop wash churning the mist on the lake. He is flying blind, by stopwatch and instinct. "Steady, steady," Johnson is chanting, his eye pressed to the simple sight. "Left, left, steady, now." He hits the release. The mine is gone. McCarthy throws Q for Queenie into a climbing turn, his engines screaming as he claws for altitude, clearing the opposite hill with feet to spare. The explosion is not a crack. It is a deep, wet thump. A volcano of earth and water erupts from the center of the dam. McCarthy circles back. The fog is blown away, and in the moonlight they see a massive crater, a 40-foot deep bite taken directly out of the dam's crest. Water is gushing from the wound. It is crippled. It is bleeding, but it is not breached. The Goliath of clay has held. "That's it, boys," McCarthy says, his voice heavy. "We've done all we can. Let's go home." As he turns north, the reserve force is meeting its own fate. Flight Sergeant Ken Brown, in F for Freddy, also attacks the SORP, adding his mine to the crater. Still, it holds. But others never even get to try. Flight Sergeant Byers, piloting K for King, is caught by heavy flak over the Dutch coast. The Lancaster is shredded by 88mm shells and falls from the sky in a cascade of fire. Flight Lieutenant Barlow, in E for Easy, successfully navigates the entire route in, only to clip high-tension power lines near his target. His plane, fully loaded, cartwheels into a field and disintegrates. The success at the Mearne and Edersee has been paid for in advance by crews who died before they even saw their targets. And now, for the survivors Gibson, Maltby, Shannon, Knight, and McCarthy's most dangerous part of the night begins. They are deep in enemy territory. They are low on fuel. Their planes are riddled with holes. Their crews are at the absolute limit of human endurance. And the entire German night fighter and flak network, which had been confused and scattered, is now fully awake, vectored to their locations, and screaming for revenge. The long, agonizing flight back to the coast has begun. Dawn is still an hour away, and it is an hour in which every second is a new, desperate fight for survival. May 17th, 1943. 3:11 hours. The Dutch coast. There is no formation. There is no plan. There is only survival. The surviving Lancasters of 617 Squadron are running a gauntlet, alone, spread out over 100 miles of hostile territory. They are flying at 60 feet, not to attack, but to hide. They are using the trees, the canals, and the darkness as their only armor. But the German air defense is now a screaming, angry beehive. Night fighter bases are lit up. Flak batteries are loaded and searching. The entire Flak coast of Holland is a deadly wall between them and the safety of the North Sea. Flight Lieutenant John Dingy Young, piloting A for Apple, is the first to reach this wall. He has flown a perfect mission, his mind still in his belly after Gibson sent him home as a reserve. He is a good pilot, a popular officer. He is almost there. A searchlight beam, brilliant and white, snaps on. It catches the Lancaster, pinning it like an insect. Instantly, a dozen more join it. Young is blinded, trapped in a cone of artificial daylight. He throws A for Apple into a violent corkscrew, diving for the ground. But it's too late. The 20mm flak batteries on the coast open up. The tracers find him, ripping into the fuselage and the wings. The aircraft, fully loaded with fuel, explodes in mid-air. No one gets out. Miles away, Squadron leader Henry Dingy Young is simply gone from the radio. Gibson, in G for George, is fighting his own battle. His plane is a wreck. The tail is shot up. The fuselage has holes you could put a fist through. His rear gunner is wounded, but he is still Guy Gibson. He is still the wing commander. He flies low, his eyes burning, his hands raw on the yoke. He crosses the coast, the black, churning water of the North Sea appearing below. 1 hour to home. His navigator, Terry Tarum, says, his voice a dry croak, "If the fuel holds." They are not alone. A Messerschmitt Bf 110 night fighter, vectored by radar, appears on their tail. Its cannons open up. Tracers whip past the cockpit. Gibson shoves the Lancaster into a diving turn, his port wing just feet from the waves, the spray hitting the windscreen. He is trying to force the fighter to overshoot. It works. The German pilot, realizing he's been dragged down to wave-top level by a heavy bomber, breaks off, unwilling to play this insane game. Back at RAF Scampton, the fog is rolling in. A thick, cold, Lincolnshire fog that threatens to close the airfield. On the ground, Barnes Wallis is waiting. He is standing by the control tower, a cup of tea in his shaking hand, a figure of unbearable tension. Air Vice Marshal Cochrane is beside him. The radio in the tower crackles. AJG to tower. 50 miles out. Request landing instructions. Over. It is Gibson's voice. He sounds 1,000 years old. Cochrane grabs the microphone. "Hello, AJG. Well done. Clear to land. Clear to land." Wallis weeps. He doesn't make a sound. The tears just stream down his face, cutting channels in the grime. His marble has worked. A single set of landing lights cuts the fog. It is 4:15. Gibson's G for George appears, a ghostly, shot-up wreck. It hits the tarmac hard, lurches, and then settles. It taxis to its hard stand, the engines dying with a cough. The silence that follows is deafening. Gibson unbuckles, his body a single, aching bruise. He hauls himself out of the pilot's seat and half falls to the tarmac. He stands there, swaying in the fog, looking at the empty hard stands. One by one, they straggle in. McCarthy's Q for Queenie, its belly peppered with flak. Martin's P for Popsy, its wing a sieve. Maltby's J for Johnny, the plane that broke the Murney. Knight's N for Nan, the plane that broke the Edersee. Shannon, Brown, Townsend. They land and the crews climb out. They are not heroes. They are zombies, their faces black with cordite and engine oil, their eyes white and staring. They don't cheer. They don't speak. They light cigarettes with shaking hands and stare at the empty concrete pads. The pads where M for mother should be. The pads for Z for zebra, for A for apple, for B for baker, for E for easy, for K for king, for C for Charlie, for S for sugar. 8 pads, 8 aircraft. They are not coming back. 53 men. Gone. In a single night. 3 more are prisoners, having been shot down and surviving. The laughter of the generals in London has been silenced. Barnes Wallis's bouncing bomb has just smashed the industrial heart of the Reich. Over 330 million tons of water have been unleashed. Downstream, power stations are drowned. Steel foundries are inundated. Coal mines are flooded. The German war effort has been staggered by an impossible precision blow. But here, at Scampton, as the dawn breaks, there is no celebration. There is only the fog, the smell of aviation fuel, and the terrible, terrible silence of the empty spaces on the grass.